So as people reach out to me, a lot of the times they're looking for help with setting boundaries. And that can be boundaries in their own relationship, boundaries with their extended family, boundaries with their neighbors sometimes. And the reason that this is a difficulty is because of historically not having that opportunity or feeling silenced just from their role as being a female. So in my practice, I see a lot of women sacrificing themselves for the comfort of others. And this comes out in many ways. I think the biggest tell for if you are someone who is doing this, right, sacrificing your own needs for others, is your level of resentment. If you feel like you're resentful a lot, it's because you're not honoring yourself. If you feel resentful, you are not doing what's best for you. Because if you were doing what's best for you some of the time, you wouldn't feel that resentful. So if you have terrible holidays because you're always doing what other people want or other people used to do and are expecting, you suffer, right? So I think the biggest key is if you're feeling unhappy and resentful because you're always doing what everybody else wants, then it's time to make a change. So when people need help with this, it's usually because this has been going on for decades already, right? So when you are 2 or 3, maybe you're being asked to sit still while your brother is not, right? Or you're asked to wait in line, or you're asked to be mom's helper, or you're asked to give your toy back to someone who's younger, or you're asked to give away your balloon at a fair, or you're asked to share your brand new birthday present, right? We have all these demands on little girls to be polite, to do the right thing. But is it the right thing? Or is it telling them that like their wishes don't matter? They should please everyone else who wants something that they have. And so this doesn't just end, it continues on into their teenage years, into their adulthood. And so now maybe they're 30 and they're reaching out saying, help, I don't know what to do. I have this, mother-in-law that's taking advantage of me, or I have this spouse that like doesn't support or help me, but I don't know how to speak up for myself because I have never learned, right? And this is one of the reasons I'm like, it's okay that your kids are saying no. It's so important when they start doing it at 2 that you don't shut it down forever, because we want girls to say no. We want all kids to say no. We want people to say, I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable. This doesn't feel right. Because that doesn't just help them when they're learning it when they're 2. It helps them when they're in, some uncomfortable peer situations, some dating situations. We want to help them be assertive from the start. But a lot of people in their 30s and 40s are calling saying, I've never been assertive. I don't know how to be assertive. I feel mean when I'm being assertive. I feel bad if I'm putting myself not last, right? It's not even like, oh, I'm having trouble putting myself first. I have trouble taking myself out of last place. And that's not right. So I think when we're trying to make a change, we have to change our perspective on it. And this is something I teach kids and parents, is that being assertive is not being aggressive. And I think that's where it gets mixed up. Being assertive feels mean. Why does it feel mean? Is it aggressive? No. There's passive, there's assertive, and there's aggressive, and they're 3 different ways. But women have often found themselves in the passive role. And the opposite of that is not aggressive, right? So how do we firmly state what we want or don't want and feel good about the way we do it? Like when you're a little kid and your feelings are so big, it's hard to be assertive because you're so mad. And sometimes we talk about this with like mama bear stuff too, right? Like someone was being mean to my kid, so like now I wish I could kick their ass, right? And it is too aggressive. So that's not what we're teaching kids. We're teaching kids like how to say, I don't like that, not F you. So learning how to be assertive. And sometimes the best way to practice is very neutral things or people you already feel really safe with, right? If you want to practice saying no to your closest friends about going to dinner when you really should have that night at home, or like you are too tired or burnt out, practicing it with people that care about you and will respect your decision is a great way to start, because there are people who are not going to like your decisions. maybe they're in your family, maybe they're in your extended family, maybe they're in your, mom's group or your church group or community group. So you start with people who feel safe. And that way, when it gets more comfortable and you have to tell someone who's going to be angry with your boundary, like, I'm sorry, I can't say yes to that right now, I'm going to have to decline, and they are angry, that's okay. You'll learn that you don't have to take that on. Someone doesn't have to like your boundary. That doesn't mean you don't set it. You do it for you, not for them. So if you need a night home, if you need to say no to a trip or a dinner or a group event, you do that for you. And once you start practicing it, it gets much easier to do. So how do we help, particularly women, shift out of this position? And for a lot, it's easier to do it on behalf of their kids, right? And then transfer that over. And so if you're setting boundaries because someone's making your child uncomfortable or is mistreating your child, for some reason, that's so much easier to do because you love them so much, you're willing to do anything for them. And it's like, I agree, and I'm sorry no one did that for you when you were little, right? So when we learn how to set boundaries now, we are modeling this for the next generation. We are saying, hey, if you don't like this, you say something. And not disrespectfully. This isn't like we don't care about generational whatever and we're going to be mean to grandparents or adults. No, you're still teaching your child to be a great, respectful person, but also that they don't have to take on whatever someone else decides they're going to put on you. We often see this recreated the most with oldest daughters. And so that's something I think to just be mindful of and trying your best to be aware of when you take advantage of the situation and how to stop yourself. The reality is moms of multiples often need the help of the oldest child, and particularly the oldest girl seems to be the most helpful. So we rely on them. But we're also teaching them that they need to help us, that we're going to put the needs of the younger people who are more dependent or helpless first, and we are requiring them to do more or say less or complain less. So I think step one is just be aware that you might be doing this, and how do you lessen it a little bit? I mean, the reality is you need help. There are times where you need them to do these things, and that's okay too. But I think if there's an awareness, okay, I had the same position when I was the oldest. How do I not recreate this? Or how do I help her discuss with me later that she's mad at me that I asked her that? Or she was disappointed that I chose this over this. That takes away some of the helpless feeling of I just have to grin and bear it and I have to be a good girl who does whatever mommy says or mommy won't love me, right? So it shifts if we allow for the openness about it. And I think if someone has had the experience themselves, it can be easier to say, hey, I did that, and I realized maybe you didn't like that, or maybe you're mad at me about that. And it really makes a world of difference to be able to have that conversation. So if you are raising a daughter that has to follow this older way and do what she's told, you can see how that might impact her negatively as she grows up, right? That she might feel silenced. She might feel like she can't be assertive or she disappoints people. She might find herself in relationships that are more controlling because she's used to being told what to do and bossed around. And so we want to be careful and make sure that we're not just encouraging her, but empowering her to express her dissatisfaction with her parents, right? I don't like that you're doing this. I think it's unfair that you are making me do this and not my brothers. Or, this is my new toy and I don't have to share it, right? So I think we want to empower them so that we don't end up putting them in harm's way accidentally as they grow up. We don't want them to be in manipulative relationships. We don't want them to, be drawn to people who, for friendships that are bossing them around, or, they have to be the minion of this person. And so we really want to empower them to be in a leadership position, not just doing what other people say. So if you're a mom and you feel like you have a history of being a people pleaser, this would be a great time to try to break that pattern, right? You want to do it for yourself. You want to do it because modeling it helps your children, and you want your children to have a different way. If you identify as a people pleaser, you probably don't love that. And so by offering an opportunity for yourself or your children to make change, you will get to see what happens to your children as they become assertive, happy, self-sufficient, teenagers and adults.